Hello, everybody.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I am not signed in as OpenSSF operations. Who is this morning?
Jen is here.
Excellent.
Myself as we speak.
So while we are waiting for folks to join, if you wouldn't mind opening up the meeting notes and go ahead and add yourself to the list of attendees.
I've posted in the chat the link to said meeting notes.
Thank you, David.
That is the right one, right? Looks like the right one.
I think we have, looks like a good group of folks already, so we can go ahead and get started. So fairly light agenda today, I think. But, so first off is elections have begun. So thank you, Brian and Jen, for getting that going and sending out those emails. One thing I wanted to bring up, though, is I've heard from a few folks that they have not received emails regarding the OpenVote links and things like that. Did those go out to individuals that were registered, or did they only go out to the mailing lists?
No, it went out to the individual email address that each eligible voter provided when they filled out the eligible voter form. And the emails were sent directly from OpenVote. So I replied to Luke's email that he had sent about a half an hour ago, and I replied with that information. So if you have any issue, you know, recollect that you had completed the eligible voter form, then contact me. I'll pop my email address in the chat, and we can help troubleshoot why you might not have received the ballot.
Yeah, because I actually did hear from a couple of other folks, and I also did not receive that email directly. So I don't know if we want to like resend just in case, or possibly send to mailing list, but it seems like there may have been a little glitch.
Can you confirm you checked your spam folder?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yeah, because I actually a lot of times I get the mailing list emails go to my spam folder quite frequently, which is quite annoying.
I would suggest at a minimum making sure we send a reminder to the list, post on Twitter saying, hey, elections are happening. If you signed up but didn't get one, contact Jen.
Agreed.
Yeah, and also, while I don't think we can or should entertain new nominations for positions, if somebody's eligible to vote but for whatever reason, you know, didn't go through the process, I think we can entertain, as well as just fix up things to, if they're already eligible, just didn't fill in the forms for it.
Yeah, there are a couple of people like we're talking about right now who are obviously should be in the electorate, and if they haven't received one for whatever reason, I think that's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and if I may, once again, I know I've said it to some folks already, we have a terrific slate of people who are willing to stand, and a very small list of set of positions. So if you are not elected in, don't feel bad. This is a pretty impressive roster here. So my thanks to everybody who's willing to serve.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so the links are there. Like I said, if folks haven't received those emails, contact Jen. The next item on the agenda is I screw up this name every time. I think is it Persia?
Yeah,
How do you pronounce it?
Persia, I think is the
Persia.
correct pronunciation.
All right. So Steve, do you want to provide an update? Do you need to share your screen? Or?
No, I won't share my screen. I'll just give a quick verbal update. Also, Sudindra and Steve Taylor are on as well, so I think they can also fill in some gaps for me as well. But what I wanted to do is give a quick update where we were on the Persia project, which we talked about at the December TAC call. So it's a project with the goal to build a distributed package repository. So solving some of the distribution use cases for serving secure open source binaries. We also want to collaborate with and integrate with other OpenSSF projects. So kind of following best practices in SigStore and Cosign and other efforts which are going on with the projects here. And we've made a bunch of progress towards bootstrapping within OpenSSF. So we have a regular cadence of meetings. We have a bi-weekly community meeting. We have also a bi-weekly architecture meeting where we've been getting some good feedback from folks in the OpenSSF community about how we're headed kind of from a design perspective. And we also have a bi-weekly outreach meeting, or no, a monthly outreach meeting. The outreach meeting is designed for us to focus more on how we can kind of promote, market, and build out an external visible presence for Persia. And we've taken a bunch of steps on there as well. So we have a GitHub repo. Let me just paste that in the chat for folks. So that's a link to the GitHub repo for the project. It also has a link to the website, which is a work in progress. I think the GitHub repos, as usual, farther along than the actual website, but we're working on both in parallel. We're using the OpenSSF mailing list, Persia-Bootstrap for discussions. And we have a couple Slack channels. So for folks who have questions about the project, you can ask on Persia-Bootstrap, and if you want to watch the fireworks going on actual development, we moved over all the discussion from the folks working on the project from a technical perspective to Persia-Team on the OpenSSF Slack. So that's a quick summary. Now I'll pause to give either Steve Taylor from Deploy Hub or Sudindra a chance to kind of also mention things we're working on. And we do have 3 different companies which are contributing code, pull requests, and changes to the project. So it's JFrog folks, which includes myself, Sudindra, and others. We have folks from Docker who are contributing. Chris Crane is the kind of the main technical person there working, but Justin is also advising. And we have Steve Taylor from Deploy Hub, which is a OpenSSF member organization who's also making contributions to the project. Anything you want to add, Sudindra or Steve?
No, I think you covered pretty much all of it, and everything has been now moved to the OpenSSF Slack. So if you wanted to just see what is going on, look at our PRs, and just chat with the team, welcome.
And then one other company that you missed, Stephen, was Logden from Europe that is also participating, and the YouTube channel should be up. So meetings are starting to be recorded and published, and we will be adding our daily stand-up recordings as well for folks to be able to see what's going on a daily basis at that level as well. One last thing is we did form a Bootstrap governance document that gives us some basic governance guidelines for the project. We will need to formally do a governance document and have elections, but right now it's a little bit too early. We're just getting our feet underneath us at this point.
Okay, so that's a quick summary of updates. Happy to answer any questions which folks on the technical advisory committee have. We are looking for any feedback or guidance on the project overall from the TAC members or other folks who are part of OpenSSF in attendance. And one open item which we can use some help with is we're not sure what the process is to move from a Bootstrap project to kind of an official OpenSSF project. So we can also use help and guidance on kind of what those criteria are and how we can meet those criteria as a project.
It's Luke here. So pertinent to your last point, that's why I've tagged on the end. You called it a bootstrap. I'd come up with the word sandbox, but I think that's something that we have to do is establish what are the tiers and the criteria for a project to go from an initial sort of startup phase project to being a full OpenSSF project. So that's something that I believe we have to work on the TAC, unless I'm falling out the loop here and there's already been some discussion there.
So we actually did have some discussion on this. I think this came up on the email alias as well a few weeks ago, I think in December. So sometime last year, and forgive me for time being, completely irrelevant at this point in life, but there was discussion around the life cycle of working groups. And we talked about what it meant to be considered kind of this early Bootstrap phase and requirements that came along. And there's a document, or I should say an MD file that's on the TAC GitHub repo that defines what each one of those stages are. Now we may want to revisit that and update, sort of this Bootstrap phase as well. But there is this requirement. I think it was around number of companies that needed to be involved, number of meetings that needed to have occurred, sort of consistent schedule and things like that, and then sure, charters and all those types of things. But so there was definitely some discussion. But like I said, we may want to.
I think the challenge
we need to. I wonder if we need to revisit that, because that's in the scope of working groups. So a working group have a specific call to action of there's a problem, let's get together to discuss what we can do to fix this problem. Whereas a project is the differentiators are they have code, there's a community, a governance structure, all of these sorts of things.
Yeah, that's fair. We could certainly add that to the next meeting and revisit and update that document to flesh it out, further for projects, not just working groups.
I'm happy to take an action point to work on that as well. And I won't reinvent the wheel. We can look to leverage similar groups, perhaps not as involved, but the CNCF have a sort of similar process. And granted, they see a lot more projects coming in, but I expect that we'll see a ramp up of new projects wanting to join.
Yeah, and I think the inspiration actually for those life cycles came from CNCF originally as well. So yeah, that makes sense. No,
and you may want to look at the CD Foundation, since they're a new foundation, relatively new foundation as well, on their process for bringing on projects. It's a little more simplified than the CNCF one, and it may fit better for the where OpenSSF is at this time.
I would also suggest we look at the Confidential Compute Consortium. Ann Bertuccio and I bootstrapped their project growth planning. Both the ladder from Sandbox to helping projects coming in answer the question or ask the question, what does the project get from the foundation by joining?
I'd like to build on what Ava just said. I'd like to sort of have us understand what is the end state that we want? Like, what does it look like when a project has gone through this process and now there? And not just from the project's point of view, but also from the OpenSSF's point of view and the broader membership of the OpenSSF. I was part of the CD Foundation early on, and we didn't want it to become a place where people could come and bring their stuff and say, here, please take this for us. We don't want to deal with this anymore. Right? That's an anti-pattern of spectacular proportions. But nor did we want it to be a thing where, please bless us with your approval so that we can suddenly become a big thing. You have to, like, those things have to be earned organically by each project. And so I think articulating what it looks like at the end state for us very clearly, and even if we have to iterate on that as we sort of evaluate projects and say, well, we like this project, why doesn't it fit our pattern? Great, let's have that conversation. I think we can iterate and evolve. But if we don't have that clear, we'll just have all these sort of painful conversations in the weeds without knowing why we're having.
I would put forward that the possibly most important function of the TAC is defining that overall process and goals and vision. What kind of projects does the OpenSSF want to gather under one banner? What value do the projects get in, so that it's reciprocal? Foundation gets value, projects get value, good healthy ecosystem forms. How do we define that? That's probably the most important thing for the TAC. And it's likely to change over time. Foundations I've worked with before, at the 3-year mark, 5-year mark, 10-year mark, those definitions also change.
Yep, 100% agree. I think that was one of the goals of when we last year created the technical strategy and goals around that. That was kind of the idea of then how do all these working groups sort of slate into that. And certainly, to Michael's point, we don't want OpenSSF to be this dumping ground of projects. Everything needs to fit into an overarching strategy and make sense for the OpenSSF Foundation, right? And then also, we don't want it to be this sort of, heavy-handed, like, come get approval from the TAC for every little thing as well, right? So I think, yeah, Ava, like you mentioned, clearly defining those things, having that process is a good thing. So we can add that to the agenda for next week, or sorry, 2 weeks from now, the next meeting. And we can start fleshing some of these things out.
And Precise, folks, I'm not singling you out there. It's a cool project. It's just, it came to mind where you mentioned Bootstrap. So, yeah.
Sorry, Luke, what was the first part? I didn't.
I was just saying, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation off the Precise project. And I was just saying, this isn't specific to that project. It's just where I heard Bootstrap, it prompted my memory. So
Yeah, no. And thanks everybody. I think we're definitely love to have a formally defined process for how this works for OpenSSF. And even if we're kind of pushing the envelope by being one of the first projects requesting this, I think that, we'd also love to see this process get formalized and benefit future projects as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, no worries, Luke. Like, I think this is something that needs to get fleshed out. And as OpenSSF has gone on in the past year, right, these things sort of come up organically and we kind of hit them as they come up. So now is certainly a good time to deal with this as we've worked through some of these other things that we've needed to deal with in the past year. So no, definitely a good topic.
Thanks, Ryan. Sounds good.
All right. So anything else on the Precise project before we move on?
Nothing else from me. If anyone has questions or wants to reach out or engage on the project, we'd love and appreciate it. And probably the best place is the Slack channel I mentioned, Persia-Bootstrap, or if you want Persia-team as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So the final agenda item is the developer tools working group. So last month, Ryan Ware, who was leading that working group, moved to a new company that unfortunately is, to my understanding, not supportive of him being involved in OpenSSF anymore. So therefore, he is unable to continue leading that working group. So we are kind of at an inflection point with that in terms of we need a new working group lead. But I've also kind of noticed that working group seems to be a little less active. And I was going to mention the fuzzing tools as well that David seemed to has added in there. I know there's been some fuzzing tool work happening there, but doesn't seem like much else. So I just wanted to bring this up to the TAC in the sense that we need a lead, but also we may want to kind of look at how that sort of fits within this working group, fits within the overall OpenSSF charter and where we see that going. There's been a lot of discussion recently around supply chain integrity and sort of some changes happening with the developer identity working groups. And, so as we're kind of looking at all of that stuff, does it make sense to continue with this one? I don't have a preference either way. I just kind of want to bring it up for discussion, but does it make sense to leave this as is, put a new lead? Does it make sense to think about integrating with another group or sort of rehashing it? Has anyone on this call been involved deeply with the developer tools working group? David, of course. Okay, excellent.
Did it start again?
Probably anticipated me swearing or something like that. So
I have no idea why the recording stopped. I truly don't.
So
Go on.
I don't have a strong opinion about this particular working group, but I actually want to echo something or build on what, again, Ava said earlier on, in terms of purposes of the TAC and significant outcomes of the TAC work. I think shaping our working groups and ensuring that the working groups we have actually add up to a greater, like a whole greater than the sum of the parts kind of outcome is an important thing to do. And so I would love to see a conversation at the TAC level about, hey, how are these working groups actually working and how are they coming together to form these outcomes? And how would, if all these working groups achieve their purpose, would we have achieved a broader purpose? Because we can believe it'll happen organically. You can nudge it, you can force it. I don't know, somewhere along the way, but I'd love to see that conversation play out.
Yes, absolutely. And 100% acknowledge that that is the overarching goal of the TAC. We've been a little bit drowning, I think, in overhead in the past few months of elections and other things that have popped up. But yes, that is absolutely, I think, where we need to be and where we should go. Ava, I see that you have your hand raised.
I'd love to just put a stake in the ground and say, I think, again, one of the most important things for the TAC to do as the body delegated by the board to have oversight on technical work is to then decide how and where to hand off that authority to different groups with intentionality and say, this working group, here's your charter, and here's how often we're going to check in or expect reports back. I think that would be a really good help in setting up that structure, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that, I've definitely wanted to have happen is more check-ins with the working groups and having them actually, the leads at least attend the TAC meetings to provide updates. I think would be incredibly beneficial. It's been difficult to get that to happen in the past. So that's a challenge for the upcoming TAC. But yeah, certainly something that needs to happen. I'm happy to have this discussion now if we want to start talking about, with the dev tools working group. I know Josh Bressers, I think is his last name, provided an email that he would like to lead that group, but I think we need to have a much more fundamental conversation first, as far as where do we want that working group to land? Does it make sense? I mean, I think what David, you mentioned, we all kind of agree tools are important. We definitely want tools, but does it make sense as an individual working group or just as sort of a piece of each one of the other ones? Each supply chain can certainly produce tools. It doesn't need to come out of the tools working group, right? So what are folks' opinions and thoughts on that as far as keeping it individual or migrating it?
Ryan, I would
or both.
love for there to be a TAC meeting in which each of the working groups actually did a show and tell, like imagine it's 10-minute slot for each one, and everybody could sit there and watch all these things. It would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I can start reaching out to the individual working groups and try to put that together. I don't know if it'll happen within 2 weeks or the following one, but definitely we can do that. In the past, for folks that haven't been involved for the past 2 years, we used to have this thing called the town hall that Kate Williams primarily drove, and that was updates from the working groups, and it sort of facilitated that type of update happening. But with that not occurring anymore, I think we definitely need to get into a cadence of having these people come and provide updates to the TAC. So
we actually just talked yesterday about doing another town hall sometime in early March. I mean, I would love to figure out whether you'd all like to see the town hall be more of a tool for, bringing new people into the project versus kind of a status update for everybody it was already in the project. I saw it as more the former, like, hey, if you're new, you want to kind of just an overview of what's going on where, come here. Whereas I think there's perhaps other channels we could use for keeping ourselves updated on what's going on in the working groups and the like. But anyway, but happy to evolve that.
Yeah, I think in the past we used it in a couple for both of those actually. Yeah, we kind of did like this intro if you're new, here's kind of what the working groups are and what they do, how to get involved. And then we also used it as sort of a showcase of work that was done for the working groups. In the beginning, every working group kind of talked about what they were doing. And then as work was evolving and, various points of achievements were occurring, different working groups would present if they had something to show. But
okay, well, we'd like to do another one soon. So
yeah, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, okay, good. We'll get something started on the list on that thread.
Awesome. Cool. So a couple of action items for me, at least. So for the next meeting, I'll try to get the working groups to start coming to TAC and providing updates. We certainly need to discuss the dev tools. I'm not sure if there's another active member in there besides David that could provide the update now that Ryan Ware is gone, but we can certainly try to figure that out. But in light of that, are there other topics that folks want to discuss today? Do we want to continue this conversation, or do we want to wait till next time and kind of give folks some time to dwell on these topics and get prepared for them? Yay, nay, if you want 30 minutes back, I'm happy to provide that as well.
I'll take the 30 minutes back, but I don't want to force the issue. Nobody else seems to have an opinion, but.
Yeah, if I can jump in real quick, you mentioned, hey, all the working groups give a 10-minute. You might consider as an alternative having different meetings drill in on specific working groups so they can really talk about, and you can have more in-depth discussions about what's going on, what's not working, what can be done to make things even better. Instead of having the real quick. The problem with the 10 minutes is you barely get in and then you move on. It's good for general knowledge, but not necessarily for identifying and fixing challenges.
Yeah, the last time that we did this, if I remember correctly, we tried to schedule this, individually and separately. I think we broke it into 2 different meetings. The challenge I think we ran into was that some topics were working groups were very quick, and others were incredibly in-depth and took the entire time, and it was very hard to predict which was which. So I would sort of be in favor of having sort of a initial overview just to kind of talk about what each group is doing and try to figure out where it might slate, and let the TAC kind of decide how we want to overall structure it, and then maybe have follow-up meetings where we do some deep dives into ones that need more help, especially given the new members in our audience that we've had recently. Overviews might be helpful. What do folks think about that? Overview meeting, then deep dives?
Yeah, I like that.
Cool.
I mean, Ryan, if you think about it, right? The overview is like, here's the show and tell of everything. People don't even know what half of these groups do. Great, now you know. Exactly. And then each of the groups can basically schedule as part of their own normal working group cadence, come to our session where we're going to have next week a deeper dive on what we're doing and why, and then anybody can show up to it.
Yep, that works too.
I think it's just kind of second that, like having the town hall, the public meet and greet overview is great, but the TAC should be having, say, quarterly deep dives with different projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, because at least in my mind, the TAC should be more than just, hey, this is where you learn. It's let's discuss the problems, because anything where you're trying to do anything real, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be problems. I don't think we should shy away from that. I think we should say, hey, we're doing great here. We hit a roadblock here. Can someone give us some help or ideas on how to make progress?
So two
ahead,
other
David.
specifics. One, I would say, I like the way the CCC has set up mentors. So every project or working group has a designated mentor who's a member of the TAC, who has offered to make themselves available to that project on an as-needed basis as an escalation path. If the project is stuck or doesn't know how to navigate something in the broader org policies, that TAC mentor is available to help them. And the clear escalation path of if a project is stuck, much like if a team is stuck, they know to come to the TAC to ask for help to unblock them.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. It's kind of funny given that if we look at that lifecycle markdown file that David posted the link to, thank you. We actually mentioned that one of the requirements is that there's a TAC sponsor. However, most of the working groups that we have today came more organically from the initial creation of OSSC before we were even OpenSSF, right? And so therefore there is no real TAC sponsor because it didn't exist. So at this point, yeah, I think it makes sense to kind of rethink some of that.
Let's have a little bit of a reset, and I would suggest the policy be that they always need to have that. It's not a let's say in the future somebody steps down from the TAC or rotates off, and that working group or project no longer has a sponsor. Well, they need to find one. Somebody needs to step up and still fill that role. We don't want dangling projects in a foundation.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I think we have a long backlog of sort of foundational type things that we're slowly working through as they come up. So no, this is all great stuff. So. All right, so I will reach out to the groups and see about getting them to show up for updates. Anything else before we give folks back the time?
I guess this is a real question for Ava. Which group had this idea of a mentor?
The Confidential Computing Consortium. I dropped a link in the Zoom chat. I'm happy to copy it into the Google Doc.
Yeah, I want to get in the Google Doc so that that idea sticks around.
You got it. I'll add a little line or two there.
And really, mentor may not be the right word. I mean, sponsor might be better, because I don't think in this case we're really trying to mentor a program, a working group lead who doesn't know anything. It's much more of the trying to give and assist and that connection back to the TAC, so that we can, so that our leads aren't at least feeling alone.
Yeah, I believe we use sponsor in the life cycles document that we have currently.
And it's in the CCC, we chose not to use the word liaison because we don't want projects to feel as though they have to go through that person. That person's their only channel, but rather that person is available to help them as sort of the designated point of contact. In that way, projects might feel nervous emailing the entire TAC list saying, hey, I got this little thing, I don't know what to do. Where do I go with my question? They have a person they can build a relationship with to ask.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And David, I know I say this almost on every single call. Thank you again for taking notes.
I'm sure there's important information I have not included, so help wanted. Yeah, other than I don't like the word mentor, I love the word sponsor, because I agree liaison's not right either, but I like sponsor because that gives, oh, wait a minute, that's your, but somebody else to help the leads so that the leads, instead of feeling alone, have somebody to, give them a hand.
Yeah.
To deal with the challenging problems. But if we can learn from confidential computing, and I see somebody has put in a link. Excellent. I see something I'm going to be reading in the very near future. So it's a cool idea.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Is there anything else? This has been a great discussion. Short meeting today, but definitely good.
Okay, how's this? Does everyone agree that this sponsorship idea makes sense?
Plus one for me.
Okay,
yeah, I like
if so, how's this? I would like to push more towards action between now and the next meeting. can we either collectively or have our TAC lead just assign sponsors? Because
Well,
I'm sold on this idea.
David,
I'm
given that
all
we're about
for
to
it.
elect a new TAC,
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
no,
was gonna say,
think
I'm all
what
for
we're
it,
doing
but
here is setting up a
rather
lot
have
of
churn.
work for the incoming TAC team, which I'm
Yes.
happily putting work items there, whether I get it or not.
Okay, fair enough. But in general, I have a bent towards let's not just talk about an idea, but start doing if there's consensus that's worth doing. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Normally, I would agree, absolutely, but yes, given the current environment, I think
David-
it has to wait.
David, as the note taker, you could start to put something on the agenda for the week after the election. And simply
love-
say, and then we will assign the owners there. I mean, it's as simple as that.
I love that idea.
Okay.
Here
What
here
date
are
is that,
action
by the
items
way?
for the next.
So for the next, I forgot when our voting completes.
Yeah, I know it shifted, so I'm looking at the calendar.
We may have one more meeting with this slate.
That's what I was thinking.
Jen,
Yep, the 6th. I just posted to the on Slack. So it's midnight on the 6th of February is when voting closes.
okay,
And
so
And the next TAC meeting's on the 8th.
right, and the election will result in 4 people. There will need to be another 3 appointed by the governing board. And so I suggest waiting to seat the new TAC until those 3 are appointed,
Yeah.
and having this TAC meet one more time.
And do we know when the governing board will be doing that?
Let me see, what's the early February governing board meeting would be.
The 3rd, I believe.
Meet on the
So-
3rd, so we're not going to meet before that's
Right.
known. But we could conceivably propose it and have it accepted, in the intervening time. So, I mean, over email, because we meet again on March 3rd. The governing board meets again on March 3rd. I'll see if I can do that over email, so that the next TAC call, which would be what? Well, there's Feb 22nd. And Feb 8th, right? So Feb 8th, which would be the next one for this TAC, should probably meet and be the existing TAC. And then I bet over email, we could probably close a vote so that the Feb 22nd TAC meeting is when we could seat a new TAC at the earliest.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
all right. And by the way, I have added that to our upcoming notes.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Oh, don't. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah. We do have an 8th meeting still coming up.
Cool beans. All right, folks. See you later.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.